Hi guys, welcome to episode 29 of Tiger Heart Chats. Thanks so much for all your messages. I posted the new podcast yesterday and I've already had like loads of people contact me. I know it's been a while since I've done these, but we're just doing them with ISC at the moment, and it's great to be here again. There's a great vibe. I've got a fantastic guest for you today. She's someone that was introduced to me by someone that I know, and I've done a lot of research about her today, and she's really cool, and I'm really happy to have her. Please welcome to the stage the VP of Marketing at T1V, Blair Rubio.
Thank you, Sanj. Thank you for having me.
No worries. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all good. How are you finding ISC at the moment?
ISC has been electric. I feel like the energy is back where it was pre-COVID. It's my first year back since, COVID times. So it's been awesome. Loving it.
Awesome. So there's going to be a few people listening to this podcast that don't know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm Blair Rubio. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, which is in the United States, obviously, but a lot of people don't associate tech or startups with that part of our country. So it's been cool to kind of grow in that space. I came to AV by way of tech. So I've always loved startups and entrepreneurship and young companies and how to grow them. And so that's kind of how I landed at T1V, and that's how I landed in the AV space. It really wasn't an intentional move at all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And tell us about T1V.
Yep. So T1V is a visual collaboration software company. So, we started, we really have a funny backstory, and that's kind of like how I coincidentally landed in AV. We started in hospitality. It was like right around when the iPhone came out. Our CEO saw these iPhones everywhere, and it had a really isolating effect on people. They were all just kind of staring at their individual screens. And so Mike, our CEO, wanted to come up with like a larger collaborative way for people to come together. And so it's like, why don't I take that touch screen? I'm going to make it a lot bigger, and I'm going to put it in a table, and people are going to come to my restaurant and they're going to interact with each other and the content that they have. And that has since evolved into, for a while we had a chapter in retail, we had a chapter in live events, and now we've found ourselves in this kind of higher ed and enterprise space. And in that space, we're working in the AV channel. Like, those are our partners. That's who we deal with. And so that's when I say I kind of landed here it wasn't intentional. It's really because as a company, as we were growing, we kind of found that this was our space and our channel where we needed to be. So
awesome. And so that is really interesting you say that you kind of landed in this space, because the majority of people within the AV space just kind of found it.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I've only been working in AV for about like 11 years. But when I fell into it, it was like, wow, there's this whole, whole kind of platform of commerce that I never knew about.
Yes.
You fell into it. What was your mindset when you found this world that we're all working in at the moment?
Yeah, it's funny because and I don't know if you experience this, Sanj, but I'll be explaining to friends and family like what I do, and I talk about AV, and they look at me like, what is that? And I have to explain, okay, well, there are brands that hire these firms that come in and they help design their spaces and they optimize it for meetings, and all of that comes with a lot of technology. And it's brands that like I hadn't heard of before in terms of the technology that's going into these spaces.
Yep.
My first introduction to AV was at Infocom in, I believe it was 2013. We were looking for trade shows that had an audience for us, and we were like, okay, well, there's a lot of higher education, a lot of enterprise customers go to Infocom. Let's just go to that show and check it out. And then I believe it was the next year we introduced our product for this space, ThinkHub, but it was like walking that trade show hall, and I was seeing like these massive touch screens and LED screens, and people are talking about all of the feeds and the wires, and it's like all of that I don't really, it doesn't resonate with me as much as like, okay, if I walk into a restaurant or if I walk into an office, like how is the experience going to be different than it could be without AV? And that's like the piece that I I latched onto. But yeah, Infocom was really my introduction.
Yeah. And Infocom's an interesting one because a lot of people don't know that Avixa, who like the chief shareholder of IC, also chief shareholder of Infocom as well, which is quite interesting because I only found that out from working with Avixa. What are the markets like between Infocom and IC? I've heard that, I mean, I've never been to Infocom, but I've heard they're very different from a mindset perspective. Give us your, view on that.
Yeah, they are different, and you'll have to come to Infocom sometime. But we're a US-based company, and so Infocom was kind of the easiest starting place for us. I would say the audience at Infocom is much more about the dealers, the AV dealers, or like the integrators, as you might say here.
Yep.
When you come to ISE, it's obviously, I think, much more global in focus. You're talking with a lot more end user brands that are making really large strategic decisions for their companies.
Right.
Like, we're here because we've got 50,000 employees across 5 countries that we need to connect. And like, that's like a really big challenge, right? And I think the difference at Infocom is it is much more regionally focused. We do get some, I would say a good amount of Latin America comes up, but it is like a widely US based show.
Yep.
IC is just, on steroids. Like it's just like a much more global focus, and it's awesome because, a lot of the issues are the same. It's just on a larger scale. So
yeah. So that's interesting. So with regards to T1V as a business, I'm assuming you had to grow in the US first to kind of find your foundation, develop the, how the kind of architectural aspect of your commerce works, and then transcribing that to other territories. It's like, okay, now we go to IC, and we start approaching these, I guess, other countries.
Yeah, that's right. ISE was like our growth story. So, starting in the homegrown Infocom, local US companies, but then being able to take that globally, right? And it's like finding the markets overseas. And I guess it was, 5 or 6 years ago, we actually moved one of our original team members over to Amsterdam just to set up shop and see what it's like. And that was the home of ISE up until this year. So.
It was. So this is your first time in Barcelona. We were just speaking just before.
It is.
How are you finding Barcelona?
Yeah, loving Barcelona. It's definitely a different vibe than Amsterdam. I think a lot of people are excited to be here. I think they like the change in scenery. I myself, we kind of joke that, I have friends at home. They're like, "How's Barcelona? It must be amazing." I'm like, I really haven't seen it.
Yeah.
When you're exhibiting, it's like you're kind of stuck in that booth, but at nighttime it's been fantastic. Food, the wine, what's not to love?
It's beautiful. Just things like local wine, it's literally just made a couple of miles away.
It's so good,
and you can taste it. It's beautiful. So this is a nice trip for you coming to IC.
Oh yeah.
Amsterdam's a nice place as well, but Barcelona is a different beast.
For sure.
Talk to us about how, because you've been at T1V for 9 years, is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
So talk to us about that change. Like, you've seen that change, and you're part of that R&D, the development of the product. How have you seen that business change? And the reason why I ask that, I know there's lots of people listening who are still in that kind of startup kind of stage. And I guess you've seen that change within T1V. How do you feel about that? Like, what's that like, being part of something like that grows and then switches and then goes somewhere else?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the best thing in the world. It's and I've really only worked in startups and tech, and I like to be able to grow with a company and to be able to kind of shape where you want to go and who your audience is even, that has been the first 5 years that I was with T1V. I would say half of what I was doing was just trying to find that audience and find their challenges and how we kind of fit into that. I think, I was employee number 20. I was the first marketing hire. It was basically our founders, a handful of salespeople, and then mostly developers. And it was we have amazing engineering and brain talent, but it's like, how does that translate into a solution for companies that, resonates and like actually changes the way that their employees work? And so the R&D process for us has always just been like serving our customers, like trying to understand like what is truly like difficult for them, and then how can we solve for that. So R&D for us is very straightforward. It starts with our customer base. And I think as a marketer, like I think it's your job to understand your customer better than anyone.
Yep.
And so I do think marketing has a really significant role to play in the R&D process, because marketing's out in the front lines with sales, obviously, but like hearing from prospects, like, what are you looking for? What are the challenges? Even like what types of spaces, like those spaces change, they're rebranded. Yep. Like even right now, COVID has changed. Like I think about pre-COVID and everyone's like open office concept, open collaboration. We all need to see each other and be able to like yell across the room at each other. And now it's like the walls are going back up, it's like, and the office is no longer the place where you do your day to day. It's where you come and you just like have social time with your colleagues and get to connect with them. Like it's completely changed. And so our R&D is just having those conversations, obviously taking it back and testing, like doing all the engineering. Like I'm not doing that.
Yep.
My role in R&D is just like, hey, here's what we're hearing. Here's what we're seeing. Let's build it into product,
Wow. And I mean, that's exciting to be able to see the business like be somewhere and see it grow because of what you've learned, over that time. I mean, that was a really interesting thing you said there was, you spent the first few years at, T1V trying to find out where the audience was. So it sounds like a really exciting, exploratory kind of aspect to the R&D process.
It is. And I think I think the best thing about working for a smaller company, startup company, it's like you get to kind of dabble in all these things.
Yeah.
You get to find out, what is it that you like most and move in that direction. Like as a small company, it's like everyone kind of does a little bit of everything, right? As you grow, you start to kind of focus a bit more in a certain area. I mean, I've obviously always been focused in marketing, but the part that I love about marketing within tech or within a startup environment is it's like you get to really shape product and the way obviously that you message that product. Absolutely.
And I mean, you touched on you working with those R&D teams. Is all of the engineering based in the US?
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's based in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And just with regards to like IP, like what was that like when you found the company found that thing that's like, right, this is because obviously you had an idea, you explored it, but then how did it feel finding that right thing where you're like, okay, now we've got something, this is what we're going to take to market and this is how we're going to take it to market? Yeah,
I mean, I would say like we measure success when we land like an amazing account. So it's like a customer comes to us with a really specific use case or need, and we can say, we can solve for that. And it's like the moment, and I can think about our growth and the milestones we've hit almost in terms of like the customers that we've been able to work with. So like our growth story is very much tied to the customers of our early days. Like if you can find that customer and you can solve for them and then tell that story to the next prospect where it resonates, land that account, grow within that customer, take it, it's like, that's how we've scaled. It's purely through customers. Like we are a lean operation. We do not have the buku bucks that you see on the show floor. Like it's amazing to walk the show floor and I can see the marketing budgets, but as a startup, you're really just operating on, like, you're just trying to find that customer need and solve for it. So it's like the second we, get to work with a customer, that's our story. Like that's what we're selling that relationship to the next customer.
Yep.
Like, hey, we work really tightly. We listen to your problems, we solve for them. And then that's been the growth story for us.
And I mean, that's the most important like aspect of marketing is I don't want to say like word of mouth because that's like a really simple thing to say, but is that, how you grow with a customer and help them, as you say, solve a problem and add value to their whatever it is that they're doing, I guess. You touched on something really interesting there, just with regards to what you see at ISE and these huge marketing budgets. And I think it's a really important thing to focus on, because you can walk around here and be like overwhelmed with what's going on. And obviously this season there's a very specific narrative that a lot of the companies are focusing on, particularly because we're coming out of COVID. And I think it was like before, as you said, before COVID, everyone's talking about we've got to be in the room and doing all these things. Now what I've noticed anyway is like everyone's talking about Zoom, and you need this type of thing for Zoom.
Yes,
it's all about Zoom, and obviously that narrative will change. Where do you guys, as you say, as a lean business, how do you position yourself amongst the noise, and not just from a sales perspective, like from a brand perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think our message, despite the pivots and the turns, like it has always been finding a way to bring people together, right? Like that's just the high level vision. We want to just, whenever you are meeting with people, communicating with people, we want to just improve the way that feels for you. Want to make it easier. And so, I think that message holds true. It's more now the conversation is like, okay, well, if you can't be in the room, how do I give you an equitable experience to the people that are in the room? So like as the remote person, like how do I make sure that you still have the same kind of like power that the people in the room have? Like that your voice is on the same level, that your content is as important, and so that's that whole hybrid message. So now it's like message is the same, like the high level message remains true, but it's like the position is now, instead of like everyone coming to the room together, it's, hey, you've got hybrid teams and we're going to support those teams no matter where they are, anytime they want to work. Like, and you see that message everywhere. Like walking the show floor, it's like hybrid, equitable meeting. What's the other one? Everywhere is like a big term you're seeing. Yeah. And it's language that it's, it's like, it's not, the frustrating is not the right word, but it's like you as the small company have to be leading like in your messaging, right? So it's like that's the one advantage you as a small company have. It's like you're more agile, you can change things up on a dime, and bigger companies can't move as quickly, right?
Yes.
So it's like we're always looking for, okay, what are the next words that people want to hear in the message? And so we start using that messaging pretty quick, and now you come to a big show floor and it's like everywhere, and you're like, okay, well, the good news is we're on the right track, right? Yeah. Bad news is like, how do we stand out amongst these massive budgets and booths? And I think, for us, it's our customers. Like our customers love us. Yeah. And we do rely a lot on their positive words of endorsement. And you're right, like word of mouth, it's not really like the thing. And it's like, yes, that's the term, but it's more than that, right? It's like, it's who are their partners that are coming into their spaces and seeing it. So not necessarily word of mouth, but it's like exposure. So it's like, I don't know, we're still trying to figure out like how do we capture and measure word of mouth as like a demand gen input. But anyway, so I'm like taking a little bit of a tangent.
No, it's good.
But it's, it's like,
important.
Yeah, I think, it's our customers and then it's our partners. So like we have really great partners. Our technology's in a lot of different booths at the show. Yep. And just trying to like grow that exposure is really our best play here.
Absolutely. So talk to us about Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah. So that's where the company's based, right?
It is.
And that's where you live?
It is. Yeah.
So, and you said that, you mentioned that like you don't think of North Carolina, you don't associate it with tech. Talk to us about it as a tech hub. It sounds like you're really proud of that.
We are. We're really proud of our Charlotte roots. We're unique to the Charlotte market, which we love. Like we love being one of the you're not going to find another visual collaboration, touch technology, interactive technology company in Charlotte. Like that's us. We own that. Yeah. Wow. We're a small player, but and I think in being in a smaller market, it's a unique thing. So it's like a lot of tech, I think the world associates with Silicon Valley and the West Coast. Yeah. And I think, we talk about this West Coast, East Coast mentality a lot at T1B because I think, being in a smaller market, our company is more focused on the balance side of things. It is not as cutthroat as a West Coast kind of tech environment. We've all kind of grown together. T1V, we've gone, I was employee 20, we're approaching 100 this year. So it's like, but we still have like very much a family feel.
Yep.
Like everyone, like we genuinely have a good time. We've got really good people there. It's not, no one's out to get each other. No one's like stepping on anyone's backs to jump to their next role. And I think that's a little different from what we hear to our tech counterparts like out West, I think.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you highlight that. So last night I was at a dinner and the lady that was running the PR for the dinner, she was talking about the company that she works for. And, they're kind of like a events PR agency. They were based in London, but now they're like by the sea, like on the south coast of United Kingdom. And she mentioned that she was talking about how it's run like a, they work in a barn. There's like sheep nearby. They're more like a family.
Yeah.
And she said when it was in London, there was so much stress. There was a lot of issues with regards to like mental health because people are like burning out. And it's good to be, when you're working, it's good to be in a place where you feel involved, you feel connected. You're not just a number. And so I guess I wanted to touch on mental health with you. How do you, it sounds like you're in a really good working environment and it's a really, as you say, a family kind of focused business, which is good. How do you keep zen working for a tech business that's, international, you're growing dramatically? How do you protect yourself?
I wouldn't say I do a great job, but I can share like some of the things that help me.
Yeah, please. If you're okay.
I have 2 young kids, so I think the balance of having 2 young kids, it's a very kind of demanding life phase. Like they need their parents, obviously. They still need us to feed them. Like they're really dependent on us. And so I think it is a grind, but it's also, I get to go to the office and like everyone is sharing stories about their family. So it's like everyone's kind of in this together. And I think that's helpful to me. I also try to play tennis once a week for an hour where all I have to think or worry about is like hitting a ball over a net. And that's like, I can just totally space out and not worry about all the other noise. But we have little things that we do around the office that I appreciate that I think go a long way. We'll have like a morning meditation. We have yoga instructors come in. We also have a lot of people that will bake goods and bring them in, and we all get to kind of like share those in the break room. It's little stuff like that I think puts things in balance, especially when you're in the office. But those are the things that I appreciate. But I also think just the flexibility to say, hey, like, our technology enables hybrid collaboration. So as a hybrid collaboration company, we really reap the benefit of that.
Yes.
So, like if I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, like it's like so much, or my kids are sick, like kids are always sick. It's like, I don't have to worry about I just stay home with them. It's not a big deal. I take my calls, I work hybrid, I work remote, whatever. To have the flexibility, I think gives me a lot of, I guess it just, I don't have to stress about it, which is a nice thing. So
awesome. And your husband, does he work in the same industry?
He does not. No.
Okay.
He has an insurance agency.
Okay.
So he is like in Charlotte. He's very local business, but we love it. Charlotte's a fantastic place. Young families, and I love it.
It's quite a beautiful place as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's quite.
Weather's great. It's mild. Gets very hot in the summer, which I don't particularly care for, but the rest of the year, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. We're kind of coming towards the end of the podcast, but got this quite a deep question that I wanted to ask you. If you could meet yourself, as you were starting working in this industry, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and I was like, what would I say to that? I think it's, a lot of the times we talk about like women in tech, women in AV, and it is like, as a woman in this space, there are not a lot of other women in this space.
Yep.
I see it as an advantage. I see it as an opportunity. I've always enjoyed this space, and I don't, I would just say, like, don't let that intimidate you or scare you away from entering like tech or AV, and I think it's like, if you have a passion for this stuff, it really, none of that matters, It's like, just do the thing that you're interested in doing. Like, don't let any of that intimidate you.
I think it's a really important thing to say, because you're right. This industry, the diversity is, you could question the diversity of this industry. There's lots of different perspectives on it. There's lots of different angles on it, and there's lots of different reasons. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. You can't let what you see affect where your true vision wants to take you. Mm-hmm. It's so important to believe in yourself and just go for it. Mm-hmm. And it's quite clear that what you're doing at T1V is making impact. And I'm really happy that you've been quite open about that. Mm-hmm. Because I know a lot of the listeners would want to understand that. Has it ever brought you down before? Like, have you ever felt like, oh gosh?
It really hasn't. Like, I've had a really positive experience in this space. It's been a really welcoming space.
Yeah.
And it honestly makes me question why there aren't more women in this space. Like, I find it odd, and I think, like most, like anytime you bring in more diverse people and different opinions, it's like, you have something to offer.
Yeah.
And, I genuinely feel when I walk into my, meetings with my team and at T1V, it's like, there'll be, like, I think I represent a voice that isn't captured by everyone else in the room. Mm. And I think that's valued. And it's nice, to have a different perspective.
Absolutely. So. What do you think? One of the things I think is an issue is just a lot of young people don't. There's no kind of clear route. As you say, a lot of people here just fell into audiovisual. How do you think we can, as an industry, change the way young people can see how to get into the AV industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's like about the experience side. And I think, and this is like I think AV is a lot of the times associated with like the speeds and feeds and the tech spec. And it's like, well, you're doing that to make sure, someone sees something at a frame rate that doesn't make them feel seasick or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you translate that tech spec or speed and feed into like the experience side?
Yeah.
And I do think the younger generation is so much more sophisticated in terms of what they want from an experience standpoint, like with their content, with their media. Like, everything is so much more curated for them than it ever was. Like for my gen or older gen, like they already have so much more experience than I did at their age with like content and media.
Yeah.
And like to harness that and like translate that into, all right, like when you walk into a physical space, like what's the relationship with that media? I don't know. Like, I think it has to be experience led. And I think a lot of the times we get so hung up with like the tech and the spec and even the way that we name products. Sometimes I'm like, there's so many numbers and letters in that product name. Like, let's just come up with like a really cool general name that someone like would resonate with anyone, that isn't tied to like, I don't know if that's, but.
No, I mean, all industries have their quirks, but the audiovisual industry is a strange beast. Mm-hmm. It's a great beast, but it is strange, which is great. And it is as you said before, it is a creative place, even though it's quite rigid on how they kind of communicate what the delivery is. Yeah, everyone here's here because they want to be creative in some form.
Yes,
whether it's back end, front end, or even that connection with with someone that inspires them, so that they can help them inspire other people. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. And it is, and I don't know why, like you bring up another great point. It's like, it does feel like we don't have enough young people in this space. And I don't understand why. And it's the same with the women, right? It's like, why are there not more? Because there's just so much opportunity. It's really cool stuff. It's stuff that you interact with on a daily basis.
Yes.
And you may not even know it, you know? It's
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Well,
that's a good question.
I really value you saying that about just how much content the younger generation have, because it's one of my kind of goals is to try and figure out how young people can find this wonderful industry.
Yes.
And I think there's quite a few industries that are like that. I know television's very similar, film's very similar, and there are drives, but there just needs to be a way to say to a young person, you know, whether they're male or female, wherever they come from, there's this great place you can go,
Yeah.
and it's profitable. You know, as you say, there's people are spending loads of money.
Yes.
You know, so there's lots of opportunity.
There is. Yeah.
Cool. Blair, you've been amazing.
Thank
you
you.
so much. Like I know my listeners are going to get so much value from this. So thank you. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, I would say best way is on LinkedIn. You can find me Blair Rubio with T1V. And thank you so much for having me.
No worries.
It's been fun.
You've been brilliant. Those of you listening, again, thanks so much for your messages from last night's podcast, which I posted. I really, really value you guys following this journey that we're taking. If you're sharing, make sure you use the hashtag Tiger Heart Chats, or one word. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please be good.